Hey everyone, and welcome to our Weird Science on coffee. No matter which way you drink it, coffee is one of the most popular beverages in the entire world, and there's a lot of interesting science that goes into researching why we love coffee so much, what it does to us, and some of the cool things about the plant that coffee itself comes from. So stay tuned to learn some weird science about coffee. When did humans start drinking coffee? We don't know for sure, but there is a popular story that goes along with an Ethiopian farmer who observed his goats eating some berries one day and then observed some hyperactive jumping behavior from those goats after the goats ate the berries. The farmer tried the plant itself, and though he got a very bitter, nasty taste in his mouth after consuming the berries, eventually people learned how to dry the beans, roast them, and then consume them as a beverage in coffee. So we do think the origin of coffee started in Ethiopia, but it has become a beverage that is consumed all over the world. A huge amount of the coffee that the world consumes is consumed in the United States. So what makes coffee so good? Well, inside coffee is caffeine, which is the chemical formula you see here, and part of it is a purine, which is related to the nucleotide bases in things like DNA and RNA. If you're in my biology classes, we'll be talking more about that later on this year. Now, caffeine itself can interact in a complex cell signaling pathway and keeps you awake by blocking certain receptors called adenosine receptors, which are generally going to affect energy level and cause sleepiness. When caffeine blocks those receptors, though, you're not going to get the sleepiness and drowsiness you would normally feel as your neural activity slows down. In addition to that, caffeine also bumps up your dopamine levels, which is a molecule that has a pleasurable sensation associated with it. The US itself consumes 75% of the worldwide coffee. On average, there's over 400 million cups of coffee consumed per day, and over 80 to 90% of Americans regularly consume caffeine. Now, this can be from tea or other caffeinated beverages like sodas or energy drinks, but a lot of it does come from coffee. Now, for those of you who are coffee drinkers, if you want to maximize the time of day when it's best to drink coffee, it's actually 1 hour after you wake up. And that's a way to make sure that you're getting the biggest boost from your circadian rhythms and your cortisol levels. If you consume caffeine right away, as soon as you wake up, you're not going to have an opportunity for those cortisol levels to rise to the levels that they normally would. And so every day you're going to feel a little bit more sleepy. If you wait a little bit of time after you wake up, though, you have an opportunity for your body to do the natural things it's going to do to wake up, and then you can supplement with caffeine about an hour later. People do report severe withdrawal symptoms after stopping drinking caffeine for a period of time. If you're going to drink coffee, the recommended daily consumption is somewhere between 1 and 3.3 cups, depending on the type of caffeine you're drinking and how much is going to be in your type of coffee. Obviously, drinking a beverage with 3 shots of espresso is going to be different than drinking coffee that you might make at home. But is there such thing as drinking too much coffee? Yes, even though there's a lot of health benefits associated with drinking coffee and consuming caffeine, there are some negative effects as well, and you can definitely go overboard. Some people have associated negative health effects after drinking over 28 cups of coffee a week, and if you want to consume enough coffee to kill you, well, you would have to drink not that much, not that much, not that much. Over 50 to 85 cups of coffee would be the lethal dose of caffeine. So don't drink 85 cups of coffee in a 24-hour period. Now, there's 2 main types of coffee beans that are roasted and prepared for coffee. These come from 2 different species of the coffee plant. Coffea arabica is generally grown in higher elevations, has slower growth times, is a little bit tougher to produce, and has more of a fruity or nutty flavor, generally has lower caffeine amounts, and the shape of the bean is more oval. Other species, Robusta, is grown generally on plantations, so it has a higher yield. Generally, it has a lower quality or sort of a burnt or rubbery taste for those coffee snobs out there, and has higher caffeine content. Because of that higher caffeine content, it actually needs less pesticides in its production. Why is that? Caffeine is a natural pesticide, and so the more caffeine a plant has, the more toxic it's going to be to those small insects. And because a plant that has higher caffeine is going to end up killing more insects if they're going to eat it, the farmers themselves don't need to use as many pesticides. More often than not, you're probably going to be drinking Robusta in a lot of the coffee blends that you purchase, but if you go to fancy coffee shops with special blends, you might be drinking Arabica. This is what the coffee beans look like off the tree. Again, they're very, very bitter and don't taste very much like the coffee that you're going to drink if you were to eat them raw. So what has to be done is the beans have to be shelled, dried, roasted, and then of course ground into the desired consistency to make the cup of coffee that you want. Here's the map of the world where these different species of coffee are grown. Again, remember, Arabica is grown at higher elevations, so take a look at the green sections on the map. to see where these places are. The US consumes the majority of coffee around the world, but we don't grow any of it. Now, one of the more interesting facts about coffee is that it actually is very productive in helping you with your bowel movements. Scientists have known this for a while, and several studies have shown that it can actually activate your colon and intestinal muscles. But it's not just the caffeine doing that, it's coffee itself. And so different scientists are trying to figure out what exactly in the coffee is causing the productiveness of bowel movements as you drink it. Researchers at the University of Texas recently did an experiment giving rats different types of caffeine and coffee mixtures, and the rats who were given coffee actually had suppressed bacteria and increased muscle motility in their bowels regardless of the caffeine content. So just so you know, caffeine and poop are best friends. We're working to figure out why. So the next time you drink your cup of coffee, or if you're not a coffee person at all, the next time you see somebody drinking coffee, think about some of these things that we mentioned in our Weird Science today, and let me know what else you want to know about coffee and the science behind it. Thanks so much for watching. This has been another Weird Science.